very few things that are as selfless as coming into law enforcement, into the corrections, coming to a sheriff's office in this day and age.
From the heart of the country in Douglas County, Kansas, this is View from 100, a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement, community, and the stories that shape our county.
It's an honor and a privilege to serve not just the community, but my community. I mean, I was born and raised here.
Hosted by your sheriff, Jay Armbrister, bringing you insights from the badge and beyond.
All right, so welcome back to episode number 3 of the View from 100 podcast. I am your sheriff and the host, Jay Armbrister. I am fortunate enough to have not only a couple of friends here with me, but 2 guys that I've worked with for many years. And we're going to delve into the training aspect of not just Douglas County Sheriff's Office, but corrections and operations as a whole for the state and country. But training, we always talk about resources. Everybody needs resources, but everybody agrees that the number one resource that every agency, every entity has is their people and their staff. But what you do with those people is what makes your place go or not go in some cases. And so training has been probably the number one priority when it comes to how do we make sure that our folks are out there doing the right thing, the right way, for the right reasons. And so it kind of gets lost in the shuffle that everybody assumes that we train, but nobody really knows how or what sometimes. So I think this is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of shed some light on that, but also talk about how things have changed over the years. In 1998, in the late 1900s, when I started with the sheriff's office, I went to work and they put me with a training officer for 2 weeks, and I followed her around, and then I was on my own. When I went out on patrol, they had started to develop a field training officer program, but I think it was 6 weeks or something, and they passed me around to different people. But the training that I got back then was unique, I guess we should say, to how the world operates today. I can still remember my very first training officer. We had an in-car camera, which was fairly new technology in 2000, and he said, "Look, you can use that camera if you want, but don't you ever use that microphone because it's just going to get you in trouble." And that was the pervasive. That was the belief back then, because you could say and do things that you didn't want people to see. And so I feel obviously that culture has changed and moved all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is good for us because it holds us accountable. It makes us much better at what we do. But also I personally, through my career, figured out, because I worked a lot of night shifts for a lot of years. I was on nights for like 6 years straight at one point. And I worked a lot of DUI cases, and I found that juries didn't believe you if you didn't have video, and that the CSI effect is real. But also is that if you had a video, you really didn't have to write your report because it told the story for you. And judges, juries, attorneys, and defendants all were like, yeah. The only thing you can't do is you can't smell the drunk, but you can see everything else, hear it all. And so I got to where I wouldn't work without a camera or a microphone because I knew that it protected me. And so that's just kind of a story about how training has shifted over the years. So enough talking about me. But so to introduce my guest today, I have Lieutenant Rich Qualls, who comes to us. You've been with us. Well, I'll let you tell us all about yourself. And then Master Corrections, Kyle Appleby, who's been with us for 17 to 50 years. I can't remember. Somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah, somewhere in there. And I just I'm going to start with you, Rich, to just tell the people who you are, where you come from, why are you here, why do you stay, and what do you do?
Okay. My name is Rich Qualls, and currently I am assigned to the Training Division as the lieutenant. For the sheriff's office, I've worked as a deputy, a sergeant, and a lieutenant in corrections and patrol. Mm-hmm. And then I worked as the operations administrative lieutenant,
yes,
which is sort of a catch-all position downtown. So supervised IA investigations, civil process, courtroom security, records,
Mhm.
and anything else that
Sure.
that comes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd you come from?
Oh, okay. Yeah, a little on
Yeah.
background, I
Yeah.
guess.
What brought you here?
What brought me here? Okay,
I mean,
so
I know where you came from,
yes,
but these people don't.
yeah, that's right. So I was born and raised in Southeast Kansas,
Oh, okay.
rural, and I was ready to get out of
Like Fort Scott, Columbus, Pittsburgh,
Chanute,
Chanute.
specifically,
Okay,
yeah, and
gotcha. Absolutely.
I was ready to get out of high school.
Sure.
I was done. So I figured out the scheme was my senior year in high school, I could leave and go take EMT courses.
Oh yeah.
So I went and
get
did
out of
that to
class.
get out of class, right? Right, and get a real job.
Absolutely.
So I went and did that. I really liked the first responder aspect. Down
Mhm.
there, there's not a lot of resources,
Sure.
especially then. There was hardly any resources. So, the ambulance left right from the ER, and so
Mhm.
you'd help out in the ER,
Mhm.
when you could. And learned a lot. I mean, obviously, coming out of high school, you don't have any idea what the real world has in store for
about
you.
anything.
Yeah. So, as I got older, I'm young and dumb, and it looks like the cops are having more fun. So I decided that's what I'm going to do.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that's 2009. And so in 2009, it was hard to get a job.
Mhm.
It was hard to get a job in law enforcement. You had to apply everywhere. They'd tell you, hey, we're Topeka PD. We got 8 spots.
Yep.
Here's the testing dates. You show up, and there's hundreds of applicants. I mean, it was a very different
Right,
environment. And
right.
so the job I got was in Joplin, Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And Joplin is a rough town.
Was Jasper County? No, that's
Jasper and
Springfield.
Newton.
Oh, New. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's
yeah.
both.
Yep.
And so I worked there for about 4 years, got a lot of experience. I was there
Sure.
during the
I
tornado.
was gonna say they had a hell of a tornado down there.
Yeah,
So.
and working almost all evening night shifts,
Mhm.
because I'm young and dumb and want the action, and that's where it is. So,
That's exactly
so
right.
yeah, so I bid those. I got a lot of experience. I mean, my first 4 years, I was just running call to call,
Mhm.
and then like probably 50%, 60% of our department, I met a woman,
Mhm.
and
Oh,
so
a story as old as time.
so obviously, what we want to do is go where she wants to go. So, so I still wanted the action,
Mhm.
and so I got a job with Johnson County Sheriff's Office, and went up there. And it was a good job. I really respect their department. We work a lot with them, obviously being our
Yeah.
neighbors, and nothing but good experiences there.
Sure.
But for me personally, growing up in a small town, when I moved there, and I mean, 500 deputies,
Yeah. Yeah.
17, 18 law enforcement agencies.
Yeah.
Like, you'd people bring folks into us, and I'd never see them before. Haven't seen them since. I'd go to the courthouse to testify, and those guys have never seen me.
Right.
And so that wasn't for me.
Sure.
It was a great agency, but it wasn't for me personally. So my also a story as old as time for cops. My now ex was from Lawrence. So
I can't believe it.
I know,
You're-
it's truly
you're
shocking.
Oh my lord. Yeah.
So we were living over here at the time. So I applied for
Mm-hmm.
Douglas County, and it's been a great experience. It fits me a lot better. We're big enough that you can do a lot of things, but we're small enough that you always know somebody, or somebody who knows somebody.
We are the biggest small town in Kansas by a long shot.
Exactly. So
Yep.
so there's a lot of best of both worlds.
Sure.
You get to do the exciting things, but at the same time, there's a lot of freedom.
Yeah.
Because we don't.
Absolutely.
Our resources are usually stretched pretty thin. So if you want to take on something,
Yep.
you can do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, perfect. That's great intro. Great
Okay,
intro. So
great.
now we're going to go to Kyle.
Wow.
No, I
was
know your
practicing
story
in the
too. I
mirror.
can't wait to hear it again.
I'm not sure my resume is going to match. Goodness.
Yeah. Nope.
Well, my name is Kyle Appleby. Currently signed to the training division.
Sure.
Until the boss man decides to kick me out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. A little hint. He's not.
Good. I'm from Bolivar, Missouri.
Uh-huh.
It's a little small town southwest by Springfield.
Isn't that where Brad Pitt's from?
It is.
The two best things that come out of Missouri, Brad Pitt and I-70. That's it.
Yep,
Have you ever noticed both their big cities are on each end and look like they're trying to get out?
they are. They are trying to get out. Yep, for the governor. I worked for the governor. That was my first job. Was at Polk County Sheriff's Office.
No kidding. Jeff City, I guess, then? Or was it in Bolivar?
Well, he was our sheriff at the time, Mike Parsons.
Oh, okay.
So he
gotcha.
hired me for my first job.
Really?
I was working at jail at night, going to high school during the day.
Oh, shit.
So yeah, right at 18, I was,
A story that is not as old as time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of experience there. Got to see some of my friends get
Yeah,
come
sure.
through, and
Yeah.
got to process them and take their homework from their bag.
Copy it.
Yeah, exactly. I was tired.
Yeah, you might want to check number 9 and 16 when you get out.
They don't look right. So yeah, that's where I was born and raised. Came in here in 2006 to the sheriff's office, and been in corrections. Been my bread and butter since then.
Mhm. Yeah. So, so the part that I want the people that are listening to understand is that when an agency, and it's kind of a difference between the sheriff's office and a PD. And I've obviously I'm very biased towards sheriff's offices, but in a police department you have patrol officers, you have supervisors, you have detectives, but maybe you have a training unit, maybe you have evidence, some other things. But in the sheriff's office, we have all of those things too. Plus, we have another half of our organization in the corrections department, which is our jail, where you can make a career and excel. And we're fortunate to have people like Kyle and some others who have dedicated their careers to the corrections division. And it's one of those deals is like the jail kind of exists in this weird little nebulous world that people pretend doesn't exist all the time until something bad has happened or someone that is connected to them is involved in that. But for the most of the part, jails are operated completely out of sight, out of mind, hoping that nobody ever hears about us because that means something bad. And that's we're kind of trying to make that change to where we're trying to kind of throw our jail and our jail staff back out into the sunlight where they belong, because it is a very difficult job. It is a very rewarding job if done correctly, but it's also extremely high leverage when it comes to civil litigation. You want to get sued, run a jail. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It's unbelievable the things that a sheriff and a sheriff's department will get sued for, but also the rules that a jailer must follow in order to make sure that people are treated with respect, but their rights are not infringed upon. I mean, just something as simple as U.S. mail, making sure that they have their mail, and if we take their mail from them for some reason, we have to follow. It has to fall into these very narrow places, and we have been sued over mail, and even I'm not saying successfully, but we always make sure and learn more and make sure that we are doing it right. But it's little things like that people just don't think about, and so. And also, as our world has changed in the last decade, our jails have become the de facto mental health institutions. And so the stakes are even higher because we're dealing with folks who are they are simply mentally unhealthy. They're dangerous. And so it's not the Barney or the Andy and Barney locking up the drunk Otis every night and him letting himself out every day. That those days may have existed at some point, not for me, but that is absolutely not the case anymore. And the jail is a place where we start people and they work their way through, but sometimes they move on. Sometimes they stay there because that's just what works for them, and so we're so lucky to have you and the others who have chosen the corrections division as their move. So,
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate you. So, but I guess really where the conversation I think ought to go for people to understand is training. Anytime we have a major situation nationwide, it always comes back to how were these officers trained? How were these deputies and trained? What is your training? And in the state of Kansas, we have being a certified, and I guess I better make sure to make this distinction as well. When we talk about corrections officers or jailers, they are a civilian employee. They are not a certified law enforcement officer. But when we talk about deputies, they are a certified law enforcement officer. But they can be working in the jail or they can be working on the road. And so when we talk about training, jail staff, corrections officers, the requirement for them is very minimal to operate and work within the state. But if you're a certified law enforcement officer, you have to get your 40 hours every year. You have to qualify. You have to do these certain things. I guess talk to me about what are the requirements across the state of Kansas for training for uniformed personnel, both corrections and deputies, but also what's the difference between what's required by the state versus what we do as an agency by policy or by practice?
Okay.
Start off.
And go.
All right. We'll see if I remember all
Sure,
these. So for a deputy, for a certified law enforcement officer in the state of Kansas, 40 hours of, initially you have to attend the KLETC or Satellite Academy
Sure. Yep.
run by,
You have to be
approved by
21.
the state.
Yep.
You have to be 21. You have to complete that. They sign off. The state gives you a commission.
Yep.
So now, after that point, every year, every training year, you have to get 40 hours of continuing education. That includes a firearms qualification and
Bias.
anti-bias
Racial and
training.
bias-based policing.
Bias-based police training.
Yep.
For corrections officers,
Yeah.
there is no
Right.
requirement
Exactly.
in the state
Yeah,
of Kansas.
that's the point I wanted to make.
There is
You can start when you're
zero.
18 years old.
You can start when you're 18 years old,
Yep.
and if your agency does not supply that training to you,
Mhm.
you
Yep.
you get a set of keys
Sure.
and a pat on the back and good luck.
Yeah, and a well wish. So,
Yes.
but in our agency, we've built, and I'm not about to take any credit for this. This started long ago, but has been built for years, where we, as an agency, viewed that opportunity to take those folks who are starting, because this is almost exclusively entry level folks who are coming in, just like me. I was a mechanic, had been married for a couple of years, and I thought that I would give it a try. So I went to work for the sheriff's office, and they put me in the jail. Having never worked a night shift in my life, had never, and like Kyle, I walked into a jail about 10% full of my friends, but
Family.
and there's no requirement on that person who is entering that jail setting. So, but as an agency, we were like, man, we really need to make sure that these folks are trained up before they hit the floors. And so initially, I think it started as like a 3 or 4 week,
I think so.
something like that. And we're talking like 10, 15 years ago. But now, kind of talk through what does our jail academy look like?
I'll give some big picture. You give the details.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I like it.
So now the structure is 8 weeks of initial classroom academy training, followed by 8 weeks of on the job. We'll probably start referring to it as JTO, or where they have a jail training officer that is assigned one trainee, and they work together. And during that 8 weeks, it starts out that the trainee's doing nothing and watching the jail training officer. And by the end of it, and there's a process, by the end of it, the training officer's doing nothing except evaluating the trainee to make sure that they can do the job independently and well.
And don't get hurt.
And don't get hurt.
Right.
And so, my first cop job was at a PD. And then I went into corrections. And the learning curve would have been cut down so much if I would have started
Oh my gosh.
in the jail.
Yes.
If I would have started learning those skills first, I would have been so much better off. Not that my path was bad by any means.
Yeah.
So we look at the Corrections Academy as foundational law enforcement training.
100%.
So we're teaching, not only what the federal, state statute, and policy requires, but we're trying to impart to them how to think like a cop.
Sure.
Right? Because while the job is different and requires different skill sets, the mindset is exactly the same. It's the same people that succeed in these roles. So it's foundational. We're teaching, risk mitigation, threat evaluation, critical thinking skills, right? So we can solve these
Right,
problems in
yeah.
addition to the tactics and hey, here's actually how you handcuff somebody.
Right, right.
Here's
Yep.
here's how you investigate,
Yep.
when something gets stolen.
Yeah.
So
No, I think it's I love the term foundational because it really at our core we are communicators, and no place on earth will a law enforcement officer learn better how to communicate with somebody than inside a jail setting. I've long said, and so in my personal story is that I was in Pittsburgh, Kansas, going to college to be a mechanic, and I had to move out of my dorms because during the holidays they would scrub down all the disgustingness that little boys leave behind. But I had a job, so I needed a place to stay for a week and a half or something. And some family friends had a son that lived there, and he was a Crawford County deputy. And so that was my first exposure to law enforcement that didn't involve me dumping out my beer or signing for a ticket. And so, but he was like, man, he's like, you ought to think about it. He's like, you kind of, you seem like you'd be good at it, but he's like, but my advice is simple. Go to a sheriff's office. He said, you're going to go in the jail. You're going to learn who's bad. You're going to learn who's not bad but did something bad, and you're going to learn who's dangerous, like truly dangerous. And then you're going to learn how to work with all of them because you have to. You absolutely have to. Plus, he said, sheriff's office, I have so many more options and things to do. And when I came to work, I just followed that path. I didn't question it. And it wasn't until later where I would see young cops hitting the streets alongside me who didn't have the experience that I had, who were just simply struggling to even figure out what is going on and who to even talk to. Whereas I'm like, hey, you need to talk to that guy. You need to get her over here, And so that has been driven home through the years to where we send our corrections officers who are being promoted to deputy to an academy, and they've got 2, 3, 4 years in a jail setting. And then they go into these law enforcement situations and they are perfectly comfortable talking to people and figuring things out, but also making decisions and taking control or charge. Whereas these other folks have never had that. And I firmly believe that every PD officer should have to work for a week or two in their jail that they will be taking people to in order to graduate and become a patrol officer in the city wherever they're at. Because not only are you going to learn, again, who's the bad guy, who's not the bad guy, and that kind of stuff, but you're going to learn the jail staff too, and just you're going to get those skills. So that's never going to happen, obviously, but I think it's part of it's one of the little things that sets sheriff's offices and especially Douglas County Sheriff's Office apart is that we come up and I always like to use the joke that our agency is a bit like a tube of toothpaste where all the good stuff is back here and we have to keep squeezing it up and out the front in order to promote because we start people here on the foundation in the jail, and then as they move up and out into these other roles, as opposed to just hiring people directly to patrol or hiring these people directly into supervisory roles or into detectives. They come from within, and that has been so beneficial to keep our culture as a communicators and person first attitudes. That has been essential for us, and I think that's the number one reason that we kind of have the culture and the community trust that we do is simply because of the way we do the right things the right ways for the right reasons, right. And that was what was instilled in us as babies, and that's what we continue to instill people. And again, I'm going off again on a total tirade, but I don't even really remember where we were, but about this, it really starts with this corrections academy. So these people come to us. And it's eight weeks now, right?
Classroom.
8 weeks classroom, practical.
Plus then the training officer stuff. So talk to me about the details of it. Like what's required, but what do they get anyways?
Well, they get a lot.
Right.
We're very, very lucky to have the training division and have the support
and the resources. Absolutely.
To put people through this.
Yeah.
As you mentioned earlier, we hire 18 years old.
Uh-huh.
We're hiring kids.
Yeah.
I can say that with the white in my beard now.
Chrome. We like to call that chrome.
Nice. So we're hiring kids. And this is going to be their first job. Might be their first law enforcement. Sure. This is a good start for them. But they don't know how to deal with someone who, some bad people.
Uh-huh.
They're going to be dealing with some bad people.
Uh-huh.
most good, just made bad choices.
Sure. Or they're good, but they've put something inside their body that has changed them fundamentally.
They were like, so we're up to the nicest person.
Oh my gosh, I have names on the tip of my tongue.
I know. I want to.
Yeah, sober, I'd take you to dinner. Right now, I don't even want to talk to you.
That's right. You know, it's such a good experience for. Again, whiten my beard. We're now doing a generation who really has no communication skills. It's lacking what they do have.
Absolutely.
Everything was from a keyboard, or
Yep.
that's how they communicated.
Sure.
And we can't text our detainees. We we got to deal with them. We got to be be able to communicate. And so I think that academy we're setting them up to succeed.
Sure.
Right. If you're back in the day, same when I first started. Here's your keys and go shadow someone who probably didn't want anyone assigned to them.
Right.
So it's a really awkward 12-hour shift.
For sure.
Just watching someone just angry.
Yeah.
So we designed this program that is so unique that I don't know any other sheriff's office anywhere that has what we have.
Sure.
And we're just doing so many cool things in this academy. Just team building stuff and how to manage stress. You're going to see things, hear things, smell things
100%.
that you should never ever have to see, hear, or smell.
Yeah.
But that is the field that we're in.
Yeah.
So we got to get them prepared for that.
Yeah, that's the reality of it. And we talk about hiring high school kids, and I think people lose the side of the fact that we actually had one. She still works for us. She's a deputy on patrol now, but she graduated high school on a Saturday or Sunday, and then started with us on like Monday. I mean, it was,
and she turned into a great deputy,
and she's doing great. But that doesn't always work out. We've had several issues, but these are children who are moving directly into a very adult and difficult job, and I think it's. I always joke that it's like every generation thinks the next generation is going to fail. Like, as soon as you start saying, kids these days, you've officially moved on to the generation that thinks the next one. And I am there. But it's different. They were raised and came up through a world that was just more disconnected. Like the joke is, my mom didn't know where I was for most of the 80s. And now we have Live 360 and everybody knows where everybody's at, and you're always on camera. So it was pretty easy for me to get away with that, but they struggle with that. But also when you hire entry level young kids, there is always a period of mourning for that person's loss of childhood. When I was a supervisor, especially in the jail, I noticed it when the new ones would come on after about 6 months to a year, you would see this kind of mourning process begin where they realized that they were now an adult, they were now having to work, they were now needing insurance, they were now looking for someone to spend the rest of their life with. And life had changed. Mom and dad weren't buying groceries anymore, weren't making, having dinner for you. You didn't get to go to school at 8, off at 3, and do whatever you wanted after that. And so that's just another one of those little things that we have to work through. That is not a job-specific deal, but it's something that affects their job, and we have to help make them see how this is all part of the process, and they're going to be okay. You're just going to have to accept that you're not a kid anymore, and we have real-life consequences. This is not a game. You don't get to hit the reset button. You don't get to. You don't have another life, or the person on the other side does not have another life to go into the game further. And so the jail academy is just the perfect place to ease into it, but to learn how to do it, but still have a little bit of a safety net or training wheels before we really hit the ground running. I mean, I'm not saying I wish I had it when I was coming through, because I had a lot of freedoms and I was able to do a lot of things, but it really would have benefited me to have somebody with me a little bit more often, be like, hey, you might want to think about maybe not doing that ever again, or, maybe this is how you should handle that.
Well, and then in 2025, if you're 18, everyone makes mistakes, but if you're growing up, you're going to make a lot more mistakes. And in 2025, you can't. You cannot make mistakes.
The margin for error is extremely thin. And I just said it last night at our Citizen Academy, is that we as an agency do have and will make mistakes. And the reason that is because we only hire human beings. they're the only people who can. They're the only ones who can do this job. But with that comes mistakes. But for us, it's always been kind of what kind of a mistake was it? You know, was this something that you thought was right? You absolutely were doing your best, and it just turned out to be wrong, or it didn't work out. That's one thing. And then you tattled on yourself, and then we worked through it. Absolutely, we were down with that. Or did you knowingly violate a rule or a law and then try to hide it? That is a different mistake and handled completely differently. And so the main thing that I like to instill, especially in our young ones, is that you are going to make mistakes. The harder you work, the more mistakes or more potential you have for mistakes. We understand that. But if you do make a mistake, own it, fix it, learn from it, and move on. But also share it so other people can learn from it too. I think it was Van Helsing in Dracula. He said, we learn not from our successes, but from our mistakes. And nothing made me a better cop, like a DUI cop, than getting my ass kicked on the stand by a good defense attorney, because I took that out of there and I'm like, okay, I have to do this totally different. Same way with mistakes. I want people to learn. It's like, I tried, I was wrong. Here's what we need to do better. Here's what I'm going to do better. Here's what everybody needs to do better. And I think we've really done a good job with the culture on getting that to happen. So,
Absolutely.
Sorry, I'm very commentary.
Yeah, you have some things to say today.
I guess apparently
It's okay.
I do.
Yeah,
That's good. Hey, you support training, so
That's exactly
you're the
right.
sheriff for me.
Absolutely. So, I guess when it comes to, and I know I don't want it to make it seem like we're only bragging on us, but you made the point is like there's not many other places doing this kind of thing, especially in the state of Kansas, and that's because a lot of these as a state, Douglas County is a large agency.
Right.
Nationally, I would say we are a medium to medium small probably agency, because there's a lot of places we have 70 or 78 sworn or something, whereas you talk about like Johnson County has 500.
Right.
You go to New York PD and they've got 5,000 sworn. LA or however many they have. We are very small, but by the standards for the state of Kansas, we are a larger agency, and so we have more resources, we have more funding because our tax base is larger. You get out into the western part of the state, and they just simply don't have the tax base or the ability and the hiring pool that we do. So we are extremely fortunate, and I totally get that. But on the flip side it's not something that we are required to do.
Right.
We just feel like it's what makes us the best agency for our community, and so that's why we really, really invest in it.
Well, we haven't talked about this, but again, training like admin lieutenant is sort of a catch-all, right? Like
100%.
whenever you start dealing with training, then it's gonna go into all these other things. You're gonna go into equipment. Well,
Yep.
how do we get that? Well,
Yep.
now you're stuck writing grants.
Mhm.
Well, now we got to do community events
Yep.
to
Yep.
do this, and
Yep.
then now you guys are good at running events. So
Yep.
so when we
Yep.
have something else,
the worst thing you do is
stuck
show that
doing
you're good
that. Yeah. So recruiting, hiring, recruiting,
Mhm.
and retention also falls in
Yep, absolutely.
our wheelhouse,
Sure.
And so something that we have greatly benefited from the training that we provide is we were ragging on the kids earlier about not being able to communicate with others. But something positive, especially about the younger
Mhm.
people and young professionals, up to about, I'd say 30, if they know why they're doing something,
Yeah.
they will work hard at it.
Absolutely.
I mean, much more than, if I get an old cop who knows how to do the job, but
Mm-hmm.
is, he just wants to clock in, clock out, and
Yep.
get paid,
Yep.
then I'll take the young kid that doesn't know
Sure.
anything, but
Yeah.
wants to know the why,
Yeah.
and then will dedicate themselves to
Sure.
that. And so by investing in the training,
Uh-huh.
which we did to better our own people,
Oh yeah.
it has attracted these kids to us. We actually, I don't think we're full staff, right?
Our jail is getting full, but again, the tube of toothpaste, as it
Right.
fills up, we end up pushing more out to patrol.
Right, and
which
so-
is we're still short there.
So right, and so in that process, we're getting ready to
Mhm.
backfill, and so we opened up, and we got overwhelmed with applications.
Right.
Like we actually had to shut down some
Yeah.
of the campaigning that we were doing
Sure.
because
Yeah.
kids are like, hey, this is
Yeah.
I could do this. You
Right,
know, this
right.
this makes sense to me.
Yeah, and the best recruiters we have are people who work for us. One of the biggest compliments I think this agency has ever been paid, in my opinion, was when a young lady came to work for us, went up through the jail, and then all of a sudden her mom came to work for us. At some point, she had told her mom, "You ought to come work here. It's really cool." I mean, it's like, how does that conversation even happen? And thank you for feeling like we were safe enough that you would risk putting your mother.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go that far.
Well, and for me, it's like, Mom, you can come work here, but I'm never working with you. Absolutely not. But no, and I think it's a great point too about we, as a society, we talk about millennials, but we just basically mean entry level folks, people who are just starting out into the non-academic world. I too have found the positive that I have seen in those is that they're a little distrustful as a whole coming out of the gate, especially with the folks in authority. But once you earn their trust or their respect or whatever, they are loyal to a fault at times. Once they are bought in, they are in, and so. I think that while they are difficult and unique in some aspects at times, it doesn't really matter because they are the future. So therefore, it is not on them to change. It is on how do we adapt to make them successful. Just because they're not going to do the job the way I did it and think it should be done doesn't mean it's wrong. And that's hard. That's a me problem. Like, that's hard for me to be like, no, you need to do this because that's how I did it. But really, we're just creating an environment for them to learn how to be successful and do these things, maybe in their own way. Or maybe they pull the TV off on their head a time or two and they're like, that doesn't work. And then they're like, what was that thing you said about how you did it? Maybe they come back. But you have to have that trust and that loyalty for them to even be like, hey, all right, I can't figure this out. What do you guys, what do you think? And so I think the millennials get a bad rap at times, but then again, sometimes they don't help themselves out.
And we're actually past millennials. We're millennials.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I am proud Gen X. Yeah, Gen X, I think we were the last generation to enter adulthood without any major technology, without computers really, and especially cell phones. And so it was a different world. But it's also, I when I was 14, my parents dropped me and my friend off at a Greyhound bus station at 6th and Michigan to ride the bus on a Saturday morning to Emporia, Kansas, to visit a friend of mine whose parent said they were going to pick us up. I would not drop my 14-year-old child off
At the Greyhound.
at a Greyhound bus station that had to stop in Topeka on its way to Emporia. But it was, at the time, that's just what you did. It was no big deal. So the world has really, really changed. Some things good, some things maybe not. But so if you could whisper into the mind of every person in this community one thing about what it is that you do or that this agency does that you don't think they know or understand. Like, I wish everybody knew this one thing about me, us, this. What would that be?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, you go first.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, so like Under Sheriff Simmons, she said, when I asked her that, she said, I would want people to know that we are not the national narrative when it comes to law enforcement and policing. We see these things too, and that is not us. So I thought that was an excellent answer, but something, where would you go with that?
I think just in the topic of this conversation that we were having today is the resources that we have for training.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing. We are now getting asked by KLTC to train other counties, other agencies.
Yeah.
So they're now pulling from us what we're doing things correct.
Right.
When we're getting calls saying, hey, can you come? I was in Kansas City, Kansas, training their officers a couple weeks ago.
Sure.
That's unique. That is amazing. That we have those resources and we have the staff and the people that we have working for us top notch.
Yeah, they're
top notch.
They're not just good at what they do; they're very good at teaching people how to do it. Again, anecdotal. Ted Williams was probably one of the greatest, if not the greatest, baseball hitter of all time. But when he left the game and tried to come back as a coach, he struggled deeply because he didn't have the ability. He couldn't just say, just do it like this. That's, just do it like this. This is how I do it. Just do it like this. He didn't have the ability to teach. And that is a unique gift. I am not a good teacher. My wife gets so frustrated with me when we go and play golf, and she's like, well, what am I doing wrong? I'm like, well, I don't know. You're just not doing it right. She's like, I don't want to play golf with you anymore. So, but, that is not my strong suit, but that is also what is so amazing about this agency is that we have those people, and we've been able to move them into these positions. Deputy Maldonado, Master Deputy Maldonado. I just, last night, he came walking in with his uniform and these big totes. I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, oh, I just got back from the KLEDC Training Academy where I was teaching a class on, I think it was like vest, people
defensive tactics.
Yeah, defensive
specific
tactics.
to
Yeah,
people grabbing onto the
because
outer carrier.
the external vests have now become something that people will utilize against police because they can grab and hold on to and move you. And also, I mean, for those that don't know, inside our carriers is this big loop that comes out. And that is because if we have an officer down, we need to have a way to drag them. But that loop is now a liability because if it comes out or they know it's there, they now have a hold of you, or they can even get it around you. So he is out teaching other agencies how to be prepared and how to not get hurt. And
and to build upon that same class, that was a class that was asked by KLTC for us to create.
Mm-hmm.
So this was not, no one offers that kind of class.
Right. They identified a need
Yep.
and said, hey, can you guys do this?
They come to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, we're just bragging. That's all. No big deal. This is the view from the 100 about bragging on the sheriff's office. Did you ever come up with anything?
Yeah. The one thing, that's tough to come down to. But
you're gonna think of it at midnight tonight.
I've been very fortunate in my career, and I've had a wide breadth of experience.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to work with a lot of agencies, 3 different agencies. Been involved in a lot of critical incidents.
Mm-hmm.
With even agencies I didn't work for.
Yeah.
I've done IA investigations, and I've done a lot of hiring. And I think what I would want people to know about cops,
Mm-hmm.
and again, this is my experience, maybe it's region specific,
Mm-hmm.
is that nobody gets into this profession selfishly or for bad reasons. When they come in, they genuinely want to help and make a difference.
Sure.
And when it goes wrong, it's because of the bad things they've seen and that we have failed to train them how to deal with that properly, or the proper way to solve these problems that they come across.
Sure.
So training is the answer.
Well, 100%.
People are right on that.
Right.
But it's honestly, the initial training, we can always improve that, right? We can get that. But we're getting good people that actually want to help their communities and are willing to make these sacrifices. So now we just have to equip them when it comes time to make these sacrifices. Here's how you're going to have to deal with it.
Sure. Well, I think there's 2 points. One, I'll push back a little bit in that I agree with you that an overwhelming majority get into this for the right reasons.
Yes, that's fair.
And
that's fair.
But again, that's on us, the good cops, to sort out the bad cops, root them out and run them out, but also make them unable to get a job somewhere else. And that's a whole other. But I think it's such a. Everybody says we need to be training. We need to be training. We need to be training. Well, I could train every deputy for 100 hours a month on firefight tactics and defensive tactics. We could exclusively, and we could have the baddest group of warrior-minded individuals that you've ever seen. But is that the kind of training that our community wants us to have? They need us to have a little bit of that, but they would rather us have those tactics as well as de-escalation, bias-based policing, mental health for the folks who we come in contact with, but also for ourselves. I would rather do 100 hours of all of it as opposed to just being like, nope, we're just going to learn how to win a firefight. We're going to learn how to survive.
And not to interrupt you, but I do want to jump in. That's one of the things that we train a lot in is how to identify when to switch back and forth.
Sure.
Right.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
it can happen instantaneously, and you have
yeah.
to
Switch it off.
switch it off and switch it on.
Yeah.
Right. And so, which hat are you wearing? Because you are going to play every role you can think of
in a
you
matter
know,
of seconds.
In a matter of seconds.
I've said it for years. Other than perhaps our military, I don't know of a job outside of law enforcement where you have to be prepared in a split second to take a life or give somebody a hug. And it may even be the same person. You just don't even know. And I think that gets lost a lot in the national narrative, but also, even like when it comes to, let's say there's a deadly force incident where a person is shot and killed. Those officers who took that life, as soon as that threat is rendered no longer, they have to take that warrior hat off and put the human hat back on and be like, now let's get you the help you need if we can, and do all we can to try to help you through this. And that is a very difficult, for folks, I've never been involved in shooting, and I hope I never am, but that would be a very difficult thing to go through, is to be in a position that you need to stop a threat that may take a life and then immediately switch into trying to save that life. And so I think that's a great point, is that nationally and locally, I wish people would take that into account and understand that it's not as simple as just saying, why aren't you helping him? Because this just happened, and my body is screaming at me to do something totally different. And so, but then in a kind of the same but separate is, again, people are so tired of hearing me talk about mental health for first responders. But again, it's like, if we're not taking care of people, why are we sending them into the most stressful and dangerous situations our community can provide to us, and expecting them to handle them perfectly? And so I was on a podcast years ago with this guy. He was a mental health professional somewhere up in the New England states, and he made such an amazing point. And we were talking about first responder mental wellness, and he said, he's like, tell me this, Jay. If you were sitting at your shift table waiting for your shift to start, and your partner walks in and he's limping, and you say, hey, why are you limping? What's going on? He's like, oh, I'm fine. You'd be like, okay, well, I hope you're okay. But then if he walks in and he's got a bone sticking out of his leg, and you're like, what's wrong with your leg? And he says, nothing, I'm fine. Well, you don't accept that answer. Like, this is not happening. You are not going out. We're not doing this. Why do we let somebody with a mental situation where they are not well go out into these situations? And it's the same thing. So and again, this is a culture issue where I'm not saying, this is not to say that the sheriff's office that I grew up in didn't care. It was just that we had a job that we had to do, and we had a group of people who did it. And if you showed an ounce of weakness, you were not going to be in that group anymore. And so we were the get back in the saddle. You got a job to do, eat it in here, chew it outside kind of mentality. And we have learned that just wasn't quite right. And so now we teach a lot of mental health stuff in our academy, in our continuing education, but also we've created initiatives within the agency to just let people know, is like, hey, what you just saw, that was not okay. And selfishly, I'm glad you're hurt a little bit, because that means you're human. Like, it means you care. Like, if that bothers you, because it should, that's the right response. Now, how do we get you to where you're feeling okay about it? And you're ready to go to work and do that kind of stuff. And I think that culture has shifted nationally as well. But in our agency, it's been amazing just to see the amount of people who are willing. And again, we go back to these millennial folks. They are way more prepared to handle their mental health than any of us. Like, they come into us ready to be better and be okay and talk about things that we were never prepared to. So we can talk all the bad things about that generation. They are on top of their mental health.
Yes, that is so true.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's something we offer, when we are bringing them in for their interviews. I mean, we hit that pretty hard, that we're going to be here for you. If you sign on,
sure,
we're a good fit. We're going to take care of you.
Yeah. And that is not something we can fail at.
No.
And there is no room for error in that. So I feel pretty good about where we've gone and the programs we've got in place. So let's see, any other any other things that you think that we need to tell the people about? You know, because we're going to have like 9 people listen to this thing. So,
So it's a big impact.
yeah, huge.
Nothing's jumping out at me.
Okay. Well, I always ask the same dumb question, but I'm gonna ask you both. As part of learning whom you are, I always like to know, what was your first concert, what was your most recent concert, and what was your favorite concert. Those all 3 could be the same thing, but they may be vastly different. And you may not, and that's the thing is I've learned through this too, is like some people just aren't music people. They're like, I've never been to a concert, which makes me judge you harshly.
Well, I've seen you do this before, so I knew these
it was
questions
coming.
were coming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Sorry, already got it down.
So I was, and my first concert was in Lawrence. I had one of my childhood friends, his older brother had a metal band, and they got a gig. And so me and my friend, we weren't old enough to drive, so his mom had to drive us up here. And I remember it being at the Bottleneck. I mean, that's the name I remember, but now that I've been, in the bars downtown, I think it was the Replay. Like, that makes more sense, like, with the memories, but heavy metal, I can't even remember the name of it.
Right,
but,
absolutely,
his older brother, so he's got to be the coolest guy ever,
a metal scene in Lawrence for a small show that'd be pretty intense. That's a good time right there.
Yeah, it was, especially at 14. You don't have any idea what's going on.
Educational.
My most recent and my favorite was Luke Combs at Arrowhead. A couple 2 years ago, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, my wife's niece wanted to go, and so we got floor tickets. I mean, there. It was a good show.
I admittedly am not a newer country fan, which he tends to fall in that category. But he's been guests on some hunting shows that I really enjoy, the Meat Eater podcast and that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure I can hang out with that dude. That he is just a good guy, seems like. So yeah, I'm with you. That'd be a good show. I bet he puts on a pretty good time.
Love it. My first concert was called Fleming and John. I don't know if it's
no, I got nothing.
Got to YouTube that.
Were they like a one-hit wonder or what?
Yeah, they were in the late 90s, early 2000s, kind of.
Fleming and John.
Fleming and John. And they were at the Ozark Empire Fair.
Oh.
So that was,
where was that at?
At Springfield.
Springfield. Okay.
Yeah, so that was good. That was my first. My last one was Pink. And I think my favorite, I have to go with Lady Gaga. It's my.
Oh man, where was that at?
T-Mobile.
How long ago? A couple years or?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
4 years ago.
I bet that would be quite a spectacle.
It was good.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know I was gay before.
Well, it's.
I resisted saying anything.
No, I'm gonna do you one better. Years and years ago, through the grapevine, I was on patrol and you were a new corrections officer, and somebody was like, "Hey, Appleby, he won tickets to see Britney Spears and he's getting to go. He's super excited, so he rented a limo." And I'm like, "Really?"
Yep, sure did.
I should have known.
That's a clue.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, well, I think we've broached all the subjects that we had hoped to get through. I obviously I say this every time people are tired of hearing me. I really appreciate the work that you guys do. I appreciate the two of you just so deeply, because of not just the impact you have on the folks that we have, but the future. Because the people you train today are going to be the trainers in 5 years, and they're going to be the administrators in 10 years and 15 years. And so it's such a butterfly effect that if you treat them right now, they're going to turn into better employees and better leaders in the future. So I think that people lose sight of how much that impact is, but also, this is an agency that I love deeply, and I want to be successful for centuries to come. But knowing that what we're doing now is going to affect the agency that I'm not going to work for, but it's going to be the one that's going to be protecting me and my family, because I'm never leaving here. And so, thank you so much for that. But other than that, I think that pretty well does it for us today.
We got one more thing.
What was that?
to the 8 people. If you want to come work for us.
Oh, yeah, right. We're almost full staff, but
We're almost full staffed, but go to the website,
Sure.
dgso.org,
Yep.
and I think there's a
Yeah.
employment tab.
Sure.
Click on that, and then it'll give you into the pre-screening.
And I have to shout out our county commission, because a year and a half ago they passed through a pay package, being nestled right next to Johnson County, that has a tax base that is roughly the size of the East Coast. I think
Right.
we can't compete with them. Not just Johnson County Sheriff's Office, but the Lennoxes, Overland Parks, and the Olathes. We can't compete with them, and we were losing people simply for money. We had employees that actually left us and say, I would stay and work here if I could make that money. And so they saw that, they helped us out, and we got a pay package pushed through, and the results of that have been magical, I would say. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, the starting pay for a corrections officer today is a hair under $28, I think.
$27.99 an hour.
So a hair under $28.
1 cent.
Yeah, roughly.
Nailed it.
And so that has really offered us the opportunity to not just get more applications, but be a little bit more selective and make sure that we're getting the right fits. And so, again, the commission went out on a limb and helped us out by doing that in a huge way. And so we're very fortunate. But yeah, if you want to come and work for the sheriff's office, we welcome it. The other thing is like we hire a lot of civilians as well. We have a lot of civilian positions, and we're seeing now that those don't turn over as much. Maybe people are happy here, but it's also the county has very good benefits, and it's so funny because when I hired in, they were like, "Oh my gosh, the retirement is amazing, the insurance is amazing," and here I am, this 22-year-old kid's like, "I don't care. Can I have the keys to the car or not?" But now that I'm kind of snuggling up to retirement, I'm like, man, we have really great retirement. We have really great insurance and all that stuff. So, it's been a fantastic place to work. So, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for coming and joining me. I doubt that the people listening are gonna get out of this conversation what I did, because I just love listening and hearing about it. But thank you so much for doing it, and we appreciate everything you do. And we'll see you, I don't know some catchphrase now. We'll see you on the flip side or something. I don't know. Yeah.